Good evening, students. In previous classes in object-oriented programming, we define class and objects. Now in practically, what is class? How class is defined and how object is created. Now in this class, we discuss the synthetic structure of class in C++ programming. So we have already know a class is used to specify the form of an object, and it combines data representations and methods for manipulating the data into one neat package. So the data and functions within a class are called members of that class. So in C++, class definitions, how we can define class. When we define class, we define a blueprint for that data type. So this does not actually define any data, but it does define what the class name means, that is what the object of the class will consist of and what operations can be performed on such an object. So a class definition starts with the keyword class. So this is a keyword class followed by the class name. So when we define a class, we must give the class keyword and then class name, whatever we define the class, and the class body and enclosed by a pair of curl braces. So in this way we can define. So a class definition must be followed either by a semicolon or a list of declarations. For example, we see how we can define a class. Suppose we define a class box. So then we give keyword class and box. Box is the class name. So in this case, we give this public is also a keyword which is actually access specifier. So later on we'll get there are three access specifier: public, private, and protected. So here we use public and colon. This is a syntax. Then for the box, we can use here double data type. So length, double, breadth, and double height. These are the actually length of the box, breadth of the box, and height of the box. And now close this class and it is ended with semicolon. So here the keyword public determines the access attributes of the members of the class that flows it. A public member can be accessed from outside the class, anywhere within the scope of the class objects. So we can also specify the member functions or members of a class as private or protected. We'll see later on. So now how we define C++ objects. So a class provides the blueprints for objects we have already discussed. So basically an object is created from a class. So we declare object of a class with exactly same sort of declarations that we declare variables of basic types. For example, suppose box is a class, then box 1, box 2, these two objects. So this box 1 is a box type class, box type data type. So it is objects. Two objects are declared and created here. So in this way we can create objects. So both the objects box 1 and box 2 will have their own copy of data members. Now we can see how we accessing the data members. So data members can be accessed. So how we can see the public data members of objects of a class can be accessed using the direct member access operator, that is dot operator. So how it is? Suppose simply write a program in C++. So this is preprocessor directive, include iostream, and using namespace standard std semicolon, then we have class box. So and curl braces this start the class public visibility mode, so double length, breadth, height, and class is closed. Now in main we can create two objects, box type box 1 and box 2, and this is actually initializations of volume initially 0. Now we can initialize, but we can access height, length, and breadth through the objects box 1 dot height, box 1 dot length, box 1 dot breadth in this way. And similarly for second box, so both box 2 height, box 2 length, box 2, and then volume box 1 height into box 1 length and box 1 breadth. In this one we can get volume. So in this way we have, then when we see the output of volume of box volume, so volume is a where we store the volume, so see out this is the syntax of C++, and inline similarly volume of box 2 height into box 2 length, so box into box 2 breadth. In this way we can get the volume of box 2 and return 0, because by default main integer main return some value, that is why we give return 0, and main is closed. In this way we can create class and objects, and when we run execute this program we get box 1 volume is this, volume box 2 is this. So here important point is, it is important to note that private and protected members cannot be accessed directly using direct member access operator dot operator. So dot operator, through dot operator we can access only public members, not private and protected. So in this case it is important to remember. Now we can remember, we can in a shortcut we have see the concept and descriptions. So concept, class member functions means a member functions of a class is a functions that has its definitions or its prototype within the class definitions like in other variables. So class access modifier, so class member can be defined as public, private, and protected. By default members would be assumed as private. So now this two concept is important. Later on we go constructor and destructor. Now these are the points. Later on go. Now come to some important points. Class member functions. So a member functions of a class is a functions that has its own definitions or a prototype within the class definitions. It operates on any objects of class of which it is a member and has access to all members of a class. Now you see, for example, we can create box class, public, visibility mode. These all are data members and these are member functions. So we close the class. Now this member functions is inside the class. So member functions can be defined within the class definitions or separately using scope resolution operator. So when we define this outside the class, then we use scope resolution operator. Defining a member function within the class declared as function inline, and in case of inline function we can define in this way class. So public, these are the data members and this is member functions. We directly calculate the volume within the class with the help of these member functions. Now and close the class. So if we define this member functions outside the class, after closing the class, then we give the syntax, this return type, the class name, scope resolution operator, and the member functions. So in this way we can define the member functions outside the class. So in this way we can define member functions in two ways, inside the class and outside the class. When we use outside the class, we use scope resolution operator, and the member functions will be called using dot operator in object. So when we create object, suppose box, my box is object, then we can create object, and when we this member function and call the main, so my box object dot the function call, so that call members of functions using dot operator. In this way we can see. Let us see the syntax of the program. So this is, we have already know IOStream, preprocessing directory of IOStream, then using namespace std, so then class box. So this is the similarly public visibility mode. We define length, breadth and height, and member functions declared here. Actually how many? 4 member functions চাৰিটা আছে, double, volume, আৰু এটা this length, this breadth and this height. These are shows number of functions, and we close the class with ended with semicolon. Then we define member functions outside the class. That is why we give this scope resolution operator. So return type, class name, then volume. So volume we can get by producting length, breadth and height. তিনটা multiply কৰাৰ পিছত এটো আমি volume to পাম. So return volume. So what type of data? Double. Next you see, this is the set. This also outside the class we define the length is set. So length, this length is passed through this, and this is the breadth. So in this way we can pass the variable length, breadth and height through the functions also. And similarly in the main row, in the main, then we create two classes, box 1 and 2 objects, box 1 and box 2, and initially volume 0. Then box 1 set length, this box 1 set breadth, set that this is actually we call this member functions through objects with even dot operators. Similarly we call this member functions through object 2 with dot operators. Then volume, then box 1 volume we get this way, we get volume for box 1 and for box 2 and return to. In this way we can execute, and finally we get these results. So today I stop here, and later on we proceed for the next class. Okay, thank you.